poppin', y'all? It's Vanessa Choir, and I'm back to talk to you about going to law school. Every time this stuff is discussed, I don't feel like they get into the nitty-gritty of what people should really be thinking about when they're applying to law school. At this point, a lot of you are probably getting your law school acceptances, which is really exciting, but there are a lot of things that you need to consider. The first is where you go to law school. A lot of people go to law school where they want to practice. That's because in law school, you're either taught federal or state policy. Federal policy, it's the same. It's going to be a monolith regardless of where you go. But state, they usually teach the law of the state in which they're sitting. So it's pointless to go to law school in California if, you want to go to school in DC. So it's just something that you have to think about, little things like that. So in this video, I'm going to give you the pros and cons. So let's get into it. So prior to 2016, there was a decrease in the demand for legal education, meaning the number of people that was applying to law school was flat out going down. So what caused the increase? What caused the jump? Because in 2017, people weren't deciding to go, well, at least in 2016 to 2017. But in 2018 to 2019, there was 11% spike. So what caused that 11% spike? I think it can be attributed to two things, and this is what a lot of people think. The first is that a lot of people just wanted to know their rights. That was a really interesting time to be in the political arena. The whole Donald Trump thing that was going on was absolutely insane. So a lot of people were probably like, let me just go ahead and learn my rights before they're absolutely taken from me. And the second is that millennials, the lack of access to jobs for us was completely decreasing. We couldn't apply to jobs. We couldn't get jobs. We couldn't land them because we were entering a recession. And millennials were the first generation to really experience graduating from college and not having job opportunities. I mean, that's when you were taught, right? Go to college, get an education, then you'll, get a job. But we weren't getting jobs. People weren't leaving the workforce and we weren't getting in. And so what was the only option? Getting a secondary degree. So a lot of people were just applying just to maybe get an opportunity at getting a job. But one thing that won't change, if you can't get a job out of undergrad, it's going to be very difficult to get one out of law school. So again, these are just things that you have to think about. So, let's discuss the pros and cons. All right, so boom. First pro, higher entry salary. A lot of people think that when you go to law school, you're gonna get this cushy 6-figure salary that's gonna get you the Balenciagas, the Prada belts, the Louis Vuitton bags, whatever your heart desires. And that's true, but you need to work really hard in law school to get that. That 190 salary is usually only the salaries of the, highest, largest firms. If you go to a mid-sized firm, you're usually only going to be making between $120,000 and $140,000. And that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. But think about it. If you take out loans the entire time that you're in law school, that's going to be nearly $200,000 worth of debt, which can be extremely expensive when you're looking at a salary like that. And even then, if you don't go to a firm and you get a legal coordinator position or any, just entry-level legal position, you're going to be at about $80,000 to $90,000, which, with that amount of debt, is something to consider. You know what I'm saying? Not to discourage anyone, because I made this decision. I went to law school, and it's something that benefited me extremely. But if you're going for that cushy salary, you need to know that you need to be at the top of your class or working really hard and applying to these jobs and going to networking events and making sure your name is known. Like, this big salary isn't just going to pop up in your lap. You got to work for it. Boom. Second pro of going to law school, having a dual degree and an increased likelihood of being hired. That's always positive. That's always a good thing, having a secondary degree. But again, it's just something to consider, that are you going for the secondary degree because you didn't find a job out of undergrad, or you don't want to apply for a job directly out of undergrad? All right, so boom, the third pro, having the ability to file in court and knowing your rights. We're all millennials trying to build Rome in a day, trying to be a bunch of little social justice warriors and Pokemon Go's. Having this degree ourselves is absolutely amazing, knowing your rights in court, having the ability to file for yourself in court. All of these things that a lot of people in our race, demographic, gender weren't able to experience. Having that opportunity and being able to be in the position to gain those opportunities are absolutely amazing, and we should be taking advantage of them. All right, so the cons. This is where it gets tricky. The first is debt. Debt. it gets really tricky here. When you go to law school, federal debt can be extremely, extremely, extremely expensive. We already know that private loans can be expensive. But one thing I will say is that right now I feel like loans will be forgiven. So if you do want to go to grad school, I feel like the time might actually be now. Because the debt might get canceled, so you might as well, maximize your time. Anyways, 2, another thing that people neglect to look at is all the factors that go into a high-paying job or into getting a high-paying job. So they go to law school thinking, oh, I'm set, I'm in law school, I'm gonna get this job, I'm gonna do this, and then they just end up becoming a statistic. I'm gonna speak on my race and demographic specifically. One thing I was told when applying to law school is that as a Black person, you should either go to an Ivy League school or Howard. And they basically said go to an Ivy League school or an HBCU because those are the 2 positions where we get hired the most. And specifically for me at Howard, when I went to the open house, I was told that 311 employers come to OCIs, which is the same number as Yale. Not only that, but these firms, the Cravath, the Ropes and Grays, the Davis Polk, all these big firms that go to these Ivy Leagues are coming to Howard because they want these types of lawyers. They want lawyers groomed from Howard. And so in my head, I'm like, I can get a Howard education where I'm around people that have the same desires as me, that have the same desire to advance society, have the same type of employers coming, and I don't have an Ivy League workload. These are the types of things that you need to be asking yourself because a lot of people don't ask themselves these things. The 3rd con, you are going to hard school for 3 years. Hard school. This is not like undergrad. It's not something that you can finesse, finagle, and I'm all about the finesse and the finagle. It's literally my name. But law school is extremely difficult. It's time consuming. And the most difficult part oftentimes isn't the school. It's that you have so much work to do that you can't succumb to your vices anymore. You can't get stressed and go drink on a Saturday night until 3 a.m. with your girls like you used to do in college. Or maybe that was just me and my girls in college. Because you have to study the next day. You have so much work. So you actually have to internally work on yourself and get better and see what you're doing wrong and process all of that stuff. And that's difficult. It's really, really, really difficult, but it's rewarding, and it can be rewarding if you put in the work. The last con that I'm going to talk about, and it's the most important con to me, is going straight out. It can be so beneficial, but it could also be so detrimental. The first benefit is that you're really accustomed to the workload. When you take a gap sometimes, you forget what it's like to have assignments, tests, papers, and all of those things. But when you go straight out, you're very accustomed to it. The difficulty with it is that the average age of law students used to be about 30 to 33 years old. All of a sudden, people are coming straight out, and it's a bunch of people that have never had a job before, that have only had internships that are coming to law school. And so now when you're applying to these lifelong jobs in these firms, they're requiring 1 to 3 years of experience, and it's like, I've only in my life ever had an internship. How am I supposed to have 1 to 3 years of experience? Or even another thing that I noticed is sometimes that intuitive knowledge that older people have through wisdom and living through the world, I don't necessarily have. Like mortgages. I've never paid a mortgage, had a home before, any of those things. I had to learn everything I did about mortgages and about property. When a lot of people have that little life experience where they immediately know the definition of these words like liens and all of those things, which maybe I'm just someone that didn't know those things, but something that I had to study that was coming intuitively to other people. So there's just a lot of cons there. Specifically the main 2 being needing work experience before, because these firms are looking at you like, are you seriously 24 years old applying to a job? Can you think about the fact that a lot of people are going to become lawyers before they ever have a full job? That is astounding to me, and that was never the case. But now it is. It's now something that we really have to consider. So people need to think, do I want to go to law school straight out? Do I want to get a little bit of work experience, a little bit of life experience? Or are we just in a rush? Are we, again, just those millennials trying to build Rome in a day? And I'm all down to build Rome in a day. I'm all down. But it's just, again, things that you really need to think through and hone in on before you make a very big decision. The first thing that they say to you in law school is look to your left. I don't know my left and my right. The first thing that they say to you in law school is look to your left, look to your right. One person person is not going to be there at the end of this. And it's true. People drop like flies because we make this on a whim decision to go to law school because it just seems like the next step for us. But it's just, again, something that you really need to think through. And I feel like I'm just going to say this until it's embedded in everyone's heads. I will die on this hill. But no, it's just something that you have to think about. And it could be the best thing ever and the worst thing ever. But you just need to know what's right for you. The moral of the story is, think these decisions through and make the decision that's best for you. Think about your race, think about your demographic, your age, your gender, your sexuality, whether you want to go to law school with a mixed political group like Democrats and Republicans, whether you want to go to a predominantly left-leaning school, you know, where you want to practice in the long term, what bar you want to take. You have to think about all these things. A lot of things that a lot of people just don't think about before going to law school, or maybe I am legitimately just speaking for myself as someone that didn't think all these things through, that just wanted to go to learn about my blackness, to learn about my gender, to learn about how that intersects with the law, to change the law. And then you get there and you realize, oh my gosh, this is so systematic, it hurts. We don't really know what that word means. We're like, it's